Studies show that a child's emotional intelligence and resilience is strongly shaped by their parents' approach to discipline and communication. But with so much parenting advice out there, it can be hard to know what really works. We're judged in many roles in our lives, but it seems we're judged the most in our roles as parents. There's no handbook to parenting yet. We're expected to never make any mistakes. Parenting is fulfilling but challenging. Every stage comes with new lessons. Today's guests bring different perspectives: psychologists, experienced parents, and public figures balancing family with busy careers. Let's start with one of the biggest parenting struggles: discipline. Discipline is about teaching, not punishing. It's so important that we know how to set boundaries in a way that builds confidence, not fear. It's important that we create a safe, supportive environment where kids can learn from mistakes. Dr. Eliza Pressman will be talking about how discipline is about teaching, not punishing.
I feel like discipline is so controversial, but I think of it as all feelings are welcome, all behaviors are not. So if I had to sum it up, and I think we do think of discipline as punishment versus teaching, and it's teaching because it actually influences your growth and development. But I think the key with discipline is not being afraid of how our kids react to it and having the strength of purpose and belief that if they do have a negative reaction to it, we can love them all the way through it, but we're not going to change our minds about it. I think if parents really understood that feelings aren't dangerous, that kids aren't going to say thank you for the boundaries and limits that we set, and that we set them with the intention of physical and emotional safety about not just them, but other people. I mean, there's three kind of parenting styles. There's like the permissive, which is best friend parenting. And so it actually can lead to anxiety and depression. And the other side of it is authoritarian, where it's fear-based and it's just rules. So that's the middle path of like authoritative, where you're sensitive, but you stick with your limits and boundaries because you know that that's going to benefit your kids, even when you have limits and rules. You want your kids to know that they have you. So if you do mess up, you can still go to them instead of being terrified. And so that's this weird thing where it's like, here are my expectations. Also, I want to name the fact that you're going to blow it sometimes. And I want to be the person you come to. And that's something to say, not when they're struggling. And I think part of the reason why it's hard to get kids to open up is because we try to get in there when they're in the center of the struggle.
Yeah.
So you have the conversations and you give the language when nobody's in the heat of the moment. So that when the heat of the moment comes, they already know that they can come to you. And you can just say to them, I can tell something's going on. I'm here whenever or if ever. And then just leave space. And one of the things that helps is that when your kids do tell you something, you say, thank you for telling me before you have any other reaction. And that may be your only reaction. With younger kids, you want to be, this is going to sound ridiculous if you don't think about animals this way, but I do. So tell me if it resonates. But you kind of want to be a dog. You're wagging your tail when you're excited to see them. You're always there and you're like really enthusiastic. And they need that. But then as they get older, imagine your 11 to 25-year-old self, you need to be a cat. So you're like you're there, you're always around, overly on top of them. But if they're interested, they can come to you, but you're not going anywhere. So it's like, it's this safe thing where you're there for them, but it's not so intense. And then they have the opportunity to open up a little bit. And when they do, you don't pounce like a dog, you stay a cat who's like welcoming the information, but not, saying, oh my God, because you don't want your kids to think you can't handle my truth. And you are physically present. Like, I think toddlers and teenagers need you more present than anybody. But we think teenagers are like off on their own and whatever, but you're home. Like if they're going to a party, you're home to greet them and look into their eyes. So you don't need to ask if they've been drinking because you will know when you hug them and look in their eyes. Attachment relationships are dynamic. So you aren't just like, it used to be, we used to think like you're either, you have a baby, you develop the secure attachment. It's like a bond, and that's it. But we know now it's dynamic. And so if you have a 5-year-old or a 16-year-old or a 35-year-old, you can still grow that healthy attachment relationship. So you can change. Our job is not to fix, it's to be there. And that's what secure attachment is. Even in your adult relationships, it's like, who can sit with me through all of these experiences, through these feelings? Because the idea of being happy isn't really about always being happy. It's about knowing you can come back from whatever it is that you're going through and you will be happy again.
The next clip is from Dr. Daniel Amen, who talks about the importance of presence and emotional connection. He talks about this special time technique, which is the importance of 20 minutes a day of uninterrupted physical time with children plus active listening. He talks about the need to set firm, loving boundaries with consistent follow through and small intentional actions that make a big difference in connection.
If you want to have influence with your children, if you want them to seriously consider your values, you have to be connected with them. Time, like actual physical time where you're not on your phone, but you put the phone away and you spend 20 minutes a day with a child. Special time. It's magic. And 20 minutes a day, do something with your child wants to do, that's reasonable, you can do in 20 minutes. And during that time, no commands, no questions, no directions. It's just time to be together. And it's money in the relational bank. And I remember when I first figured this out, my literary agent had a child later in life. We were talking on the phone, and he's like, my daughter, Laura, doesn't want to have anything to do with me. And she's 2. She won't leave me alone. As soon as I walk in the door, she grabs my leg and wants her time. All she wants to do is be with me. That's what we want, right? That's what we're after. So actual physical time. And now parents are so busy, they're not spending this one-on-one alone time listening. So that's the second part of it. So time, actual physical time, and shut up. I mean, it's so important. So you love them so much. You want to pour all of your knowledge, all of your wisdom that you worked your whole life on and download it into their head. Don't do that. Listen to them. And therapists learn this technique called active listening, that whenever someone says something, you don't interrupt and tell them how to think. You repeat it back. And you listen for the feelings behind the words. So if my son came home and said, Dad, I want to have blue hair, I don't know what your father would have said, but I know what mine would have said. No, as long as you live in this house, you can have blue hair. But what does that do? It just stops the conversation or it starts a fight. Active listening teaches you, repeat back what you hear. Oh, you want to have blue hair. And then be quiet long enough for them to explain what's really going on. And he might say, all the kids are wearing their hair blue. Sounds like you want to be like the other kids. Completely different conversation. But and he might say, Dad, sometimes I feel like I don't fit in. So sometimes you feel like you don't fit in. And then give it a breath. So they're the ones solving their problem. Now, at the end of a half an hour, he says, I still want to have blue hair. I'm going to tell him, no way in hell, as long as you live in my house, because it's not cool to look weird. It's okay to have boundaries around behaviors. Well, we haven't gotten to rules. I think families should have them. Society has rules, like tell the truth, do what mom and dad say the first time. I love that rule. Because your chance of abusing the child, if you tell a child to do something 5 times, your chance of abusing that child just went up significantly. And so if you have the expectation they'll do things the first time, it's like, Caitlin, take I want you to take out the trash, like in the next half hour. And if she doesn't, it's like, sweetheart, you have a choice. You can take it out now, or you can have this consequence and then you can take it out. I don't care. It's up to you. And I love that part of not being attached to it. I love her. I'm really clear. And she's getting that consequence if she doesn't move. Stop threatening them and then not following through. Because you teach them that you have to tell them and get angry and be a bit crazy in order for them to do what you ask them to do. And the earlier you start, the better it is for kids. I mean, it's hard if you not spend any time with children by the time they're 14. Their friends are more important than you are. And that's the heartbreaking thing I've learned is if you're not spending time with them, their friends will take your place. And they may not have the advice. They may not have the right ear for you. And it makes them more vulnerable to all the scary stuff that's on social media.
Mom guilt is probably the hardest thing. I think that you have to also separate, though, and understand that you need your own bit of sanity. So you have to do what makes you happy. You have to, if working for me, I love working, so that makes me happy. Anytime I think something's really hard, I dive into work. That was probably the only time I'd be hard on myself is, am I a good mom? I try to do everything. And I think how to balance work with that is when you're home being really present. Kids, all they want is time. They just want your time. You can give them all these amazing big experiences and they'll remember them and they're great, but they'll always remember you being present. And I think that's just the most important thing in all of your relationships. Think about what a kid wants. A kid just wants your time. So why wouldn't everyone else? You have to kind of treat everyone like that if you want these like meaningful relationships in your life. You have to be present. And it's okay to feel like you are not 100% at being the best mom. I say this all the time. There's no manual. They do not come with a manual. Everyone's doing the best that they can. And I just feel so lucky that I have a good group of girlfriends and all of our kids are experiencing different things. We're okay. They will be okay. And they will feel the love and support. And that's all you can do. We make the time to be together. And I hope that my kids want to make the time to be together when they grow up with their cousins and their aunts and just the whole family.
This next segment is from Jessica Alba, where she talks about motherhood and personal growth.
I think because it was such a struggle and so hard for my parents. They were young when they had me, and every day was a very kind of tumultuous environment just because they were in survival mode every day, struggling to get by. And they also didn't have necessarily the maturity or the tools. For my kids, I try to exemplify whatever that is. And at the same time, they are very aware of my faults, right? They're very aware that I, get stressed and I, get irritable and I don't sleep enough and all of those things. But we have a dialogue about it, and I try to create a space of compassion, obviously for them, but also, just for them to sort of like know that I'm trying. It wasn't until I became a parent, I think, that I really understood how difficult it was for them. Just being so young and not necessarily having the tools and not having, they're a setup, right, to thrive. Really, my sense of self, and I would say my insecurities as a person, over silly things kept me, I think, from fully realizing my potential before I became a mom. But when I became a mom, those insecurities sort of went away.
I hope you took away a lot of practical, emotional advice and insight from this episode. And here are some of my takeaways. Parenting isn't about being perfect. It's about being present and growing together. I think when we have that pressure of perfection, we actually sometimes act out in negative ways, even towards children. That pressure of perfection becomes why we're angry. Really, we're angry at ourselves, but we're taking it out on that child. That stress that we carry of wanting to be perfect parents and be perfect all the time makes us act in ways that we don't love afterwards and we might regret. Whether it's setting boundaries, building strong connections, or balancing life, today's insights show we're not alone in this journey. Every single person who's a parent is struggling with what we've talked about today. It doesn't matter how many resources you have, it doesn't matter what access you have. Everyone is going through an up and down. And I think we can also relate to that through having been kids in our lives. If you think back to being a child, I'm sure your parents had ups and downs. I'm sure they had days, weeks, months, and years that were challenging. It's natural for you to do that as well. Sometimes we're trying so hard not to be our parents that we end up repeating the same mistakes. I hope that this episode resonated with you. I hope you'll share it with a parent who needs to hear it. I hope you'll listen to it with your friends who are parents as well, so you can find a space to be vulnerable, open, and connect more deeply. Thank you so much for listening.